At 16, most teenagers are worried about grades, sports, or who they'll take to prom. But one teenager was quietly dismantling Wall Street. He didn't carry a weapon, he didn't have a degree from Harvard or a badge from the SEC. All he had was a laptop, a curious mind, and a sense that the world's financial giants weren't as invincible as they pretended to be. This is the story of how one kid exposed cracks in the billion-dollar armor of Wall Street, and how, for a brief moment, the entire financial system was outsmarted by a teenager. It begins in a bedroom lit only by the soft glow of a screen, the hum of a computer fan, stacks of notebooks scribbled with numbers and half-formed equations. To his parents, he looked like any other kid gaming into the night. But instead of chasing points on a screen, he was chasing patterns hidden in the heartbeat of global markets. Stock prices flicker like starlight, impossible to predict, until you realize the rhythm isn't random. For this teenager, the market wasn't chaos, it was music, and he had begun to hear its tune. Wall Street had spent billions to stay ahead. High-frequency trading firms laid fiber-optic cables across the ocean floor. They built microwave towers to shave milliseconds off trades. Every microsecond meant millions of dollars. And yet, here was a 16-year-old staring at the same public data, noticing something the giants had missed. It started small. He realized some trades were executed not in milliseconds, but in predictable gaps. Tiny delays that repeated over and over like a stutter in the world's most powerful machine. Most people would never notice, but to him, it was like spotting a crack in the dam. And he wondered, what if I push? So he built a program, not with the sleek elegance of a corporate algorithm, but with clumsy lines of code stitched together from forums, YouTube tutorials, and trial and error. But when he pressed enter, the results were undeniable. His program could predict, within seconds, where certain stocks were heading. Not because he was reading the future, but because he was reading the flaws in the present. Money started to flow. A few dollars here, a few hundred there. It felt almost unreal, like the markets were a game, and he had just found the cheat codes. But money was never the point. What fascinated him was the system. If you know where the ball is going before the pitcher throws it, you don't need to be fast. You just need to be early. Soon, his trades started to draw attention. Banks employ armies of analysts, and suddenly, somewhere deep in their data, alarms were tripping. Who was this ghost siphoning profits in patterns no one could trace? To Wall Street, it looked like a rival firm with a new strategy. To regulators, it looked suspiciously like market manipulation. But when the trail finally led back to a suburban house, they didn't find a seasoned criminal mastermind. They found a teenager, still living with his parents, a math textbook open on his desk. Interviews with financial experts later revealed the uncomfortable truth. This wasn't just a kid being clever. He had exposed something deeper, how the market, dressed up in complexity, could still be undone by a single curious mind. A former trader put it bluntly, "If a teenager can spot the flaw, what does that say about the billions we spend protecting this system?" The aftermath was complicated. Lawsuits circled. Banks pressured regulators to make an example of him. Some painted him as a criminal, others as a prodigy. For his part, he claimed he never meant harm. He just wanted to understand how the machine really worked. In the end, he walked away without prison time, but not without scars. He was banned from trading, monitored closely, his name whispered on Wall Street as both a warning and a legend. Looking back, his story isn't really about money at all. It's about power. How power is concentrated in the hands of a few, and how fragile it becomes when someone refuses to play by their rules. Because maybe the most terrifying thing for Wall Street wasn't that a teenager made money, it was that he proved their empire could be outsmarted. We often imagine systems, banks, governments, corporations, as untouchable monoliths. But history reminds us, every empire has cracks, and sometimes it takes the eyes of an outsider, someone untrained, uncorrupted, to see them. The teenager's story forces us to ask, what other systems we trust are just as vulnerable? And if they are, who will be the next unlikely person to expose the truth? This is more than just the tale of a boy genius. It's a mirror held up to the world we live in, where technology moves faster than regulation, and where the line between villain and visionary depends on who writes the history. And maybe that's the real lesson here. Not that Wall Street was beaten, but that intelligence, curiosity, and courage can come from the most unexpected places. If you found this story as eye-opening as I did, subscribe for more. Because the world is full of hidden stories like this. Stories of power, secrets, and the people daring enough to challenge them. And sometimes, all it takes is one curious teenager to remind us that nothing is unbreakable.